What's up, fellas? All right, let's get into the way too early 2023 season predictions for the Florida Gators. By the way, I just want to throw this out there, a little positive news here. Um, Florida Gators now ranked 13th in the transfer rankings. Take it for what it's worth. The transfer rankings are a little bit of a joke, if you ask me. They just slap rankings on some of these guys. Tell me how our linebacker Nunnery gets a 8-7 ranking, but Carroll, the running back, um, gets a 8-7. I don't know. Just some of the rankings are crazy. Last year, Wade's a tackle was a 9-1, yet Montreal was a 90. I mean, explain that to me. That makes no sense. That just tells you these guys on some of these rankings, they're very accurate on the high school kids for the most part, but they're a joke with these transfers. But with that being said, Florida's recruiting class for transfers now ranks 13th in the country, which is really nice to supplement a little bit of a disappointing high school class at 13th overall right now. We did get some bumps on our players, which tells you Billy's evals are really good. I think a lot of these guys will contribute year one. But then again, so 13th recruiting transfer, 13th high school. It's not where we want to be, but we're going to be patient. Obviously, things have continued to trend up better than last year's class. So, um, the quarterback's what really hurt us a lot. Although this class still, the goal needs to be top five eventually. We'll get there hopefully next year. Chauncey Bowens is visiting Georgia this weekend. That's going to be my biggest concern is can Billy hold on to these guys that he has committed in 24 and add to the guys because right now the list of visitors we've had so far has been a little disappointing. A lot of lower ranked guys haven't seen the stars coming to campus yet. Hopefully they're saving that for later in the month, and in the coming months over the spring, we'll start to see the true stars come out. But a little bit of a slow start to visitors towards the end of January. A lot of kids on campus, just not a lot of 3 stars, a lot of lower ranked kids. But we'll see. Again, we've got some starter pieces. They're visiting other schools. Are we going to hold on to them? We'll see. It's shut up or put up this time. This class, there's no excuse. It has to be top five. Um, Anything less than that is a major disappointment, but we'll give him time. I believe he's got to have a better year on the field. I don't believe he can maintain or recruit at that elite level. Although on-field results do not affect recruiting, believe it or not, it does not affect recruiting like people think it does. A lot of first-year coaches had bad records or slow starts and signed top five classes. Kirby Smart, Saban, um, Lincoln Riley, a lot of coaches like that, started off slow at their schools and were able to recruit elite levels, you know. So that correlation's been proven wrong about results on the field will bring the players. That actually has been disproven many times over by many different examples and different teams. There's a lot of other writers out there that have put articles out and gone in depth on that. So I do believe results on the field matter as far as maintaining what you have already produced, though. I mean, you start losing every game or have a losing record, your class could easily fall apart, especially if it's not your bump class. First 2 classes, players forgive the seasons because you're building. Once you're in year 3, that's one of the things I think a lot of posters don't realize. If you're in year 3 and you have a losing record, forget recruiting at elite level, talking about these long-term rebuilds. You can't rebuild without the success on the field in year 3 and 4. So that's why it's so important that this year actually be a winning season. I don't think we can survive another 6-win season. Um, even with Lagway coming to campus, because I don't know how much you can build around him without having better than 6 wins this year. So to me, I was more pessimistic at first with what we had before we just ended the portal. So with what Florida has right now, even with Mertz at quarterback, with this offensive line, these running backs, and the talent on Florida's roster, there's no reason with the schedule that we cannot go 8-4. Now, I do not see anything better than that. That is being optimistic. Okay, I think 8-4. I'm gonna go with that. I was that way last year. I said 8-4, got let down, went 6 wins when we easily should have been able to beat Vanderbilt and a couple other teams, 1-score games. We should have went 8-4 last year. That's where I think the coaching and play calling has let us down because it was there for the taking. And even and it's not all on Billy. The offense produced enough to win a lot of those games. That defense and Patrick Toney really let us down. So again, it's not all on Billy. There was some good offensive games. So we'll see what happens this year. I'm going to go with 8-4 right now, this early, before even spring gets here, based on what we were able to close with. Um, I think 8-4 is very reasonable. So I'm just going to run through the schedule real quick. Again, this isn't going to be, we're going to get more in depth on this, but we're going to start with Utah. Again, guys, we barely escaped with a win, on a pick in the end zone. I mean, it was there to be a loss without a hero-saving play. Rising is coming back. We're breaking in a lot of new players, new quarterback, traveling across the country. It's not going to be cold. The weather's not going to be a factor for Florida, in my opinion, although it is going to be at a much higher a lot of people don't realize this. Going overnight like that across the country to play that high above sea level. I was in the military, and I'm going to tell you that is a big factor. These guys are going to be winded. They're going to need to train for that to get their lungs up. I don't know, one game, one off. They're going to have oxygen and stuff like that. So I think they'll be conditioned and ready for it, but that might be a slight factor. I just see an edge here at home from Utah. The stadium and noise isn't going to be a factor for Florida. We all know that. But with Cam Rising coming back and some pieces that they've got, they're always good at tight end, always got a good line. Utah is always a top 15 team just about every year. I think Utah wins this game. Again, I don't think it's a blowout. I think it's a good competitive game, but I think Utah walks away with a win, and Florida starts out the season with a loss here. Next, we got a nice little, easy kind of a hard game, easy game, hard game, easy game. So I like the way the schedule starts out. It gives Florida time to figure things out with new players, new quarterback. McNeese State, that's a W. We don't even have to get into that one. So that should be a good tune-up game before a monster game in Game 3 against Tennessee. So after that, we got Tennessee. Right now, I have Tennessee as a loss because of Joe Milton and his progression in that bowl game. Man, he looked really good. Hupel and his offense, again, early in the season, making a lot of adjustments with the new defense, new defensive players, still getting settled in. I think we're still trying to settle position battles at that point. It is in the swamp. I know that does help Florida quite a bit. But again, Hupel's been building there. He's further into his tenure than Napier. So I'm taking Tennessee in this game. So we start the season out 1-2. It does get better from here, guys, but I just don't see us beating Tennessee again next year. Charlotte, that's a W. Okay, so Gators are 2-2 at this point. I think that we've really figured some things out right now at Game 4, right? Really got the offense figured out, got the defense settled in. Guys are getting comfortable now at Game 4. 500 record. This is where I think we start picking up some W's, right? I think we get revenge next year against Kentucky. Kentucky's at home. I do think that Kentucky's starting all over just like us. New quarterback. A lot of pieces. They were terrible last year. That line sucked. And we should have won that game last year with a first-year coach. That game was there to win too. So I think Florida's going to be good enough this year that we actually do beat Kentucky. So that puts us at 3-2. And I think that Kentucky win's a big booster for Napier and this team, a big confidence builder. That's why I say I love the schedule right here. Charlotte, Kentucky, and Vandy. So Vandy, another win. Florida's sitting at 4-2 now. Vandy has just been cleaned out. I mean, they have lost so many players. I think Vandy's really going to have a hard time now with NIL. I could see Vandy leaving the SEC at some point. Even though they beat us last year, I think they're going to be at such a low point next year that game is going to be comparable. It could get ugly. Like that 42-7 game, I think that's what you're looking at with the Vandy-Florida game next year is a blowout for Florida. Florida's rolling here at 4-2. Next up is South Carolina. That's a W after what I saw last year. I'm going to give Florida the pick there. So I think Florida gets the win against South Carolina. Now we're sitting at 5-2. Everybody's really happy about that to start the season. Like I said, rough start, a nice middle of the season. Florida being 5-2, everybody's happy. All right, guys, Georgia's up next. That's a loss, and that's an ugly one next year, I think. Again, it could be a little closer. Right now, I'm leaning a blowout. but it could be a close game with Carson Beck. Never been impressed with him. Always thought Anthony Richardson was even better than Carson Beck. Wasn't really even impressed with him at the end of that championship game. So yeah, I think it could be close, maybe for a little while, but they'll pull away in the end. So probably a little bit of a blowout, kind of like last year. Um, to me, that was a blowout. You win by a few touchdowns or 2 touchdowns and a field goal. That's a very handily, one game by the opposing team. So I'm going to say now we're sitting at 5-3 after that Georgia loss. Now we're playing Arkansas at home in the swamp. A lot of people are talking about their QB and Jefferson, and he's coming back, and that's going to be a loss for Florida. I don't think so. I think the Gators get the W there against Arkansas at home. Arkansas had some really tough games last year. A 500 team basically that just really struggled against some inferior opponents. Never was really impressed with them. Their defense was trash. They're just a middle tier, Western Conference team. So I think Florida wins that game. Now Florida's sitting at 6-3. I think we'd all be pretty happy with that if we beat Arkansas. That's a nice win out of a Western Conference SEC foe. We got that win over Kentucky. Got a winning record, sitting at 6-3. Now we're looking at LSU, right, guys? LSU to me is another loss. I'm not going to pick Florida against them until Florida beats them. They've just been on the losing side of that game for so long. LSU is more talented than Florida and has better players, has recruited better than Florida, has a better transfer ranking class than Florida, and I like Brian Kelly. He is not a bad coach. I think that's a loss. And now you got Florida sitting at 6-4. I'm sorry. I think I got the record wrong. But anyway, so LSU loss, Missouri a W. I believe we beat Missouri again next year. I actually think we win that game by more than we won it by this year. So I think Missouri's a W right there. So you're looking at, I think, 6-3 right there. So FSU, I'm predicting a loss again. Yes, we have better high school recruiting than them, but their transfer classes the last couple years have been incredible. Norvell's got a heck of an offense, can put up points. Verse is back for them. Travis, that team's being picked to be in the college football playoff and being a top 5 team by everybody next year. So I do think that FSU gets 2 straight on us. So yeah, my final pick here with my orange and blue glasses on the optimistic side is 8-4. My gut kind of says 6-6 again, which would be super upsetting and disappointing. But I don't know. I just got a little more confidence now. I do think Florida goes after another quarterback in the spring. Unfortunately, that means he won't be there for spring practice, but through the summer and fall camp. Hopefully that person can really push Mertz, maybe even take his spot if he's a more talented guy, or take his spot if he fails during the season. But just somebody there, we cannot go into the – look, guys, plain and simple, we cannot go into fall and have success with Graham Mertz as our starting quarterback with no one to replace him if he struggles. Miller, I've seen enough. Brown, the staff obviously knows something there because the kid's playing baseball and football. He's not even going to be around for much of spring practice. We cannot go into the season with those 3 quarterbacks. We have got to add somebody, preferably somebody with multiple years left to play. But that's where I'm at with Florida right now. So I'm going to say 8-4. I'm going to go with that. We'll roll with that. We'll get more in-depth in it later, see what we do in the next portal period. Go Gators. Everybody have a good day.